Hello everyone! I normally don't do these kind of videos on movies, but this one was very personal to me, and I've been seeing a lot of negativity around it, and I just want to say, I respectfully disagree, and also there's another fan joining me today, where we want to talk about what we really liked about the Garfield movie. Now, we're not going to bash on anybody who hated it and anything like that, but there are some misconceptions about the movie that we do want to clear up, and we wanted to give our overall general takes and thoughts about it, just why we really enjoyed it. So joining me today, we have Jeffyroth, who's from the Discord server.
Hiya.
Since it's really hard to talk about the movie without getting demonetized and all that, I can only show certain images, but this is going to be more like a podcast with just some footage of some Garfield characters. So,
Right.
how do we want to talk about this exactly? Like, do we want to go over the characters first? Do we want to go pros and cons? Or will you want to give your general thoughts, like, right away?
General thoughts, I really liked it, obviously, or else I wouldn't have wanted else to do this. But I guess that we should start off right off the bat by just talk about the characters, sure. Let's talk about how it adapts the characters that already exist and the other characters which are new for this film.
Honestly, a lot of them felt... How do I want to put this? They felt like their characters, with the exception of one character, and I was perfectly fine with the change to that character. In fact, they were probably the best character in the movie, just because they're so lovable, and that's Odie.
Oh yeah, Odie was great. Oh, I absolutely loved it. I know what you're talking about by the change. In this movie, Odie, you don't really see any of his dumb side. There are some scenes which kind of show, like, you know, he's just the lovable, happy puppy, and they have his loyalty to Garfield down.
Oh yeah.
Squat. They perfectly encapsulate that in the movie. Yeah, they don't really show any of his more dumber antics or stuff, and I think that's just something that's more of the regular. Like, if you look at modern Garfield, they don't really go into Odie being a stupid character anymore. And in all fairness, there have been multiple comic strips and even like moments in the TV specials where Odie, it's kind of hinted to that Odie's dumbness is just an act, and he knows a lot more than he's letting on. Like, specifically, I'm thinking of the one comic strip where you see John and Garfield leaving the house, and then Odie, you see him watching, like, Masterpiece Theater, and he's reading War and Peace.
Yeah, I've seen that one. There was also another one where they're going for a picnic, and Odie locks the car from the inside,
right.
And then it starts raining, and
Odie's
eating all the snacks. And John's like, it just occurred to me. Could it possibly be that? And then Garfield finishes that. He's like, that Odie isn't as dumb as we thought.
That Odie's not dumb as look. Yeah, exactly. Odie being loyal to Garfield, and especially to like John, it isn't something that you usually see brought up when you see discussions of Garfield, but it's definitely something of his character. As in the strip and in the TV special, multiple things, Odie is always Garfield's partner in crime.
Yes.
I guess, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's because Garfield is just tricking Odie because Odie's dumb, or other times it's just because Odie wants to do it just to be there with Garfield. And there are multiple scenes in this movie where you have Odie, like, when Vic and Garfield are having their discussion in the train car, you have Odie building, like, a hammock for Garfield to lie in.
Which is like, wait, Odie, are you his butler now or something? You servant? What the... But Odie does have his moments, and he also does get, like, that little nice bit where he gets Vic and Garfield to, like, reconsider or, like, get them to actually talk, because he, like, ties them up around the tree and they don't even notice. Like, I thought that was actually a nice little moment.
Right. That's probably in contention for being my favorite scene in the movie. Just that whole sequence of Odie tying them up at the tree, and then we get the flashback. That was really good.
Before we move on real quick, is it just my imagination, or did we not see any scenes of Garfield kicking Odie off the table? Which, to be fair, I think that's fine to not have that here, because it would seem very questionable why Odie would be so loyal to Garfield abusing him so much.
We don't, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, we don't. We do get a cutback. The one reference that I really remembered is that we see baby Garfield riding baby Odie, and he's holding onto his ears. And that's a reference to, like, one of the earlier comic strips where Garfield would actually do that sometimes. And I really like that as a reference. But I don't think we actually saw Garfield kicking Odie off the table, which is perfectly fine with me, because we also have a lot of callbacks to other comic strip references like the one that I just mentioned there.
Yeah, it's like very early on in the film, they show like this montage of all the things that happen to Garfield, and it's a lot of callbacks to what happens in the comics. You see the spider, you see how he reacts to Monday in the bath, and what you brought up with him riding on top of Odie like that. Yeah.
The one which really got me as well is also you see Garfield being thrown out the window, which is obviously a reference to that one Garfield panel that's been kind of memed to death, where Garfield...
You know what? I actually forgot about that scene. Like, I couldn't remember it. Some friends did ask me if that happened, but I was like, I don't remember it. But I guess it is in there. It's just like, it's one of those blink and you miss it.
Yeah, exactly, because that's part of the montage part of it.
Okay.
I will say this, I think that the first part of the movie, like the very opening, just has a little bit of a different feel than how the rest of the movie goes, which is fine.
Yeah, you're just
the
seeing
first part of it
Garfield in
feels
his
kinda
normal
like
day.
Yeah, exactly. It feels kind of a clip montage, and I like it. It's just different from how the rest of the movie is.
Yeah, they're just showing you how his day-to-day routine is, and then the rest of the movie kicks in. It's like, this is the basis, this is Garfield.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how he is in this adaptation. It's pretty much on point with what he is in general.
Right.
So, with that said, I think we can now move on to some other stuff. It's very hard to talk about the story because we don't want to give away spoilers, but let's just say...
Do you mind if I just take it for just a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just on flowing from the thing of characters. This is a critique. I ended up going to see the film with my brother, and one of the critiques that he had for the film is that he felt there were too many original characters. So I just wanted to see there. In terms of characters that ended up appearing in the movie that were Garfield characters, you had Garfield, Odie, John, Liz,
and Nermal.
Can we do with and Nermal? Yes,
Nermal
I was
had
going to say should we do a spoiler thing.
Very quick cameo at the end.
Nermal had a very...
Yeah.
Ended up audibly gasping when I saw Nermal because I thought that Nermal was just part of the April Fool's Day joke. But they actually brought him in, and you know what? It's better than all the other times that Nermal was in a Garfield movie, and he was just there for 5 seconds. So, in terms of original characters, we have Jinx, Nolan and Roland.
You know,
Otto.
I could not remember their names for the life of me. I'm so glad you remembered them. I couldn't remember them, and the sad thing is, I really liked those characters, but I could not remember them.
And then we also have Marge. Marge is the
head security of Lactose Farms.
Security of the Lactose Farms. So, I think that we're actually pretty even then. I know that Liz, Normal, like, they barely count, but they still appear.
Yeah.
And then that's let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 characters that we already know from Garfield to the 6 new characters.
Unless we count spiders, but do we really count spiders?
Kudos to the spiders for them actually looking like the spiders from the comics. I'm really happy that they look pretty one-to-one. So yeah, we're actually pretty close with that. We may want to talk about references later, but there is another character that's brought up in a reference. So
I see there was another...
I mentioned that
there
now.
There was a person who was completely mentioned by name. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I freaked when I saw that in the background of the fridge, Lyman. There was a little thing saying Paul Lyman, and
oh my gosh, I missed that. That's big. Oh, I missed that. I don't know how I missed that, but I missed that. Oh. I was talking about Marge saying Jiminy Davis.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Okay, so we ended up actually catching something that somebody else, that the other... Okay, this is good. This is good.
Yeah, and not only that, but he's also mentioned again because there's Jim's comic book store.
Right. And then, of course, obviously, there's Lorenzo's music
store. Which is a
This
beautiful...
movie
that's
just
a beautiful call-out.
References. Perfect. Let's see, whatever references actually do I have? You have the release date for Garfield being Garfield's password in the opening thing, and also on the garbage can. And I also put Normal here as a reference just because he appears for so little time.
You caught more than I did. I specifically asked this of you before you went to go see the movie. I'm hoping hoping you remembered it. But when they snuck into Lactose Farms,
I did.
Did you look every direction to see if you could find a USA Acres character?
I couldn't see anything. I tried looking for any US Acres characters, because I knew this is a farm. They have to have some reference to US Acres here.
Right? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, there's gotta be... Orson's gotta be here somewhere. Wade's gotta be here somewhere. Roy's gotta be here somewhere. Lanolin, Bo, Booker, Sheldon, they've got to be here somewhere, right? No, I didn't see
It's
it.
even weirder because I was looking for the U.S. Acre characters that are put into some merchant.
Oh, it's cutting off again.
And there is a cow character in U.S. Acres that never ended up making it into any of the strips. There was a calf. It's on some of the merchandise, and I was looking to see if that was anywhere, but no.
Like,
Are you coming through? Yeah. Okay.
It was cutting in and out, but I think I can use some of that.
Okay.
But yeah, it just seemed like that was a perfect opportunity to include them. And if I may, we'll get to that part later, but it's like, yeah, you
Okay.
could have had them, or at least shown them in some capacity. And that kind of hurts that we didn't get that.
It does. Especially when you look at the concept art, which is an entirely never thing, which we're going to have to get into a little bit later. And you see the concept art for John's house, and you look on his drawing table in like the setting drawing, and there's like drawings of, you see a drawing of Orson and a drawing of Roy on his drawing table. So when we cut to the drawing table, I was trying to see what he was drawing. I could see he was drawing a comic strip. I couldn't make out what the comic strip was. Because every single time we look at the drawing table, it's at a weird angle where the light's shining on it. So maybe Orson and Roy are still on the drawing table, but I'm not sure. This may sound like a conspiracy theory, but because this is true, U.S. Acres has had horrible luck in coming back. Second Garfield movie, A Tale of Two Kitties, was originally supposed to feature Garfield going to the U.S. Acres farm.
Oh.
But the voice actor for Wade was sick at the time, and he died shortly after.
Oh.
So they ended up deciding instead to make it the Prince and the Pauper story.
Okay. That's...
Then after that, Orson was supposed to make a cameo appearance on the Garfield show, but I think it was Malaysia ended up complaining because they don't like talking pigs. It's like it's a foreign culture thing where they ended up complaining, and because of that, Orson was cut from the cameo he was supposed to make on the Garfield show. And then in Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3, Orson and Sheldon were supposed to be selectable
are you kidding me?
members for the art crew, but there was actually art of them in the files. And then there was one other character, I don't know SpongeBob, I think it was Baby Pearl or something, and they were the three characters who were not in the game. So with all this bad luck, I'm wondering if it's either a country issue where certain countries don't like talking pigs, or if it's a copyright issue and they had trouble getting the rights to U.S. Acres.
I don't think it's a copyright issue because Jim Davis did all the characters, didn't he? So it's like...
Yeah, he did.
That's why they're Garfield and Friends.
If you actually look at the... I know. But remember, this is a movie that's made by Sony.
Even if these places have issues against talking pigs, what on earth do you have against Orson? He's smart. He's clean. He's a stand-up guy. What do you got against him? Sheesh.
I think it would be funny if they ended up putting him in the cut, but in the Malaysian version of the show, or it could be some other country, and I'm just blanking on it. I'll try and find after the podcast so I can put it down, which country it was. But it would be funny if for the cut of the show, Orson just ended up coming on, but he was completely censored, and there was no noise coming out of his mouth when he talked. I think that would have been a funnier way to make it, but they're the showrunners, so they have to decide what goes, and they decided that Orson wasn't good.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't help but feel like we kind of losing some structure.
A little bit
this,
of a side
we need to
tangent
bring it
here.
back so we don't
Yeah.
accidentally lose some people watching this. So
Right.
let's go with like the pros.
Yeah,
We've already talked a lot about everything. Yeah, we talked about like the references. We talked about how we like certain characters. How do I want to say this? The jokes, they land, but with the exception like a few of them, they didn't make me laugh out loud. They were more like a inhale sort of laugh. But I was still smiling and enjoying while I was still watching this. And those two jokes that did make me laugh, they came from what was happening with John, who, spoiler alert, he gets basically the Squidward or the Mr. Krabs kind of treatment from the SpongeBob 1 movie where he's just like barely in the movie.
Yeah, he is, but they definitely utilize him to the fullest potential when he is in the movie.
Yes.
I was thinking back to the storylines where Garfield gets locked out of the house, or Garfield and Odie are both outside and they escaped while John was gone, and John falls into complete shambles without Garfield or Odie, because that is character accurate. That is what John did in the comic strip when that ended up happening. He, like, what was it?
For whatever reason, Garfield and Odie just kind of like walked out of the house and just kept on walking, and then you see some panels of like John going a bit crazy, and then even like the neighbor is just like, call the police, he's gone crazy. And then he's like watching TV, he's like, I don't know why I'm so down about this. It's not like they're my children or anything. And then like the TV comes on, it's like, it's 6 o'clock, do you know where your kids are? And he starts crying.
Well, yeah, they do John really well. This might be a spoiler, might not. If it is, then you can just cut this segment. But I did also want to talk about how they chose to do Garfield's collar. Because the thing is that during a majority of the film, Garfield's wearing a collar. But you don't see him wearing a collar.
Yeah,
and I think that they're implying that it's...
Yeah, there's only one sequence where you see it, and it's only one other character that picks up on it, and I don't want to say that, but it's like, it's a very blink you miss it, but it's like, okay, why did you show that? You had to have a reason for showing that, and they do. And it's like, thank you for doing that. That was like actually really well done.
Actually helpful.
Yes.
It should be said, I've been mentioning the other Garfield movies, the past ones, just a little bit. I chose to watch every single Garfield movie that has come out before going to see this movie. I feel like that was a mistake.
You brave
because,
soul.
Once again, they're all bad.
You brave, foolish soul.
And I'm going to go back and touch about why that is in a second, but I did want to say that the other movies do have Chekhov's guns that they set up and never use.
Oh.
And so there was like 2 examples of Chekhov's guns that they have here that they actually set up and use. And I know it seems a little silly to praise a film for something as basic as that. After seeing every single this done multiple times in the past, and it actually getting done decently well here, I do have to give it some points for that. Okay, I think the thing with the collar is that they're implying that it's hidden under Garfield's chin.
Yeah.
Because what the movie seemingly was going for is that Garfield does look slimmer here. He does look more in shape, but he's fatter than the other characters, right? Because there was a scene, I'm not going to say which scene specifically, where the bigger characters are able to do something with ease, but Garfield actually struggles with it. And Garfield actually asks, how in the world are you able to do this? You're bigger than me.
I know what scene you're talking about. It's like, how did you get through?
Yeah, exactly.
You're bigger than me! There is also one other classic joke that's used that I like the way it was implemented. It's with, Roland and Nolan? When Garfield's like...
Yeah, Roland and Nolan, the dogs.
Like, Garfield gets, roped into this because of Jinx, who is, like, the main antagonist of the film. We haven't gotten to her yet, but Roland and Nolan are, like, her her right arm and left hand man dogs, and they force Garfield and Odie to work into what's going on in the film, and you see one of them, the big one, come up from behind like a street post, but you only see him on that side. You know what I'm talking about? It's like where's the rest of you? How are you doing that? It's that classic thing, and then you see the other one pop up on the other side, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is an old classic joke, but I like how it's used here because it's like, you never know where these guys are. They could be anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to show that with the film. Also, their designs are... Like, all the designs, even for the original characters in this movie, they're all ranging from serviceable to I actually really like the way that they're done. The Sharp High, I think that one is Roland. I specifically really like his design and how they end up utilizing his baggy skin.
Yes. Dude, that thing feels like it's like, it feels kind of creepy to watch that, but it's so well done.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, like, with the way that it works in some scenes, specifically when he's picking up, like, Garfield and stuff, I was thinking Clayface from Batman the Animated Series.
Maybe that's supposed to be a reference.
Maybe. I don't know. It could be, I guess. Let's see. What positives do I have, aside from everything that we've already talked about?
Well, I'll say one more thing. One
more positive.
One more positive from me.
Okay, go ahead.
The heart of the movie is really good, and the ending also made me really enjoy the movie. That last moment you see before we get to the credits I mean, that just felt so heartwarming, man. I can't say it because it feels like a spoiler, but
It's
let's...
because of spoilers, yeah, and I'd agree it probably is a spoiler.
Yes.
But I know what you're talking about. It does feel like we have... I'm not a cinema person. I think I should say that upmost and
Yeah, me
foremost.
neither.
I didn't go to see the Garfield movie because I like going to the movies to see the new movies that are coming out. I went to the Garfield movie specifically because I'm a Garfield
Same.
fan. But even then, in all the movies that I have seen come out recently, I don't think I have seen a movie that tries to tackle this type of message. And this actually, do you mind if I just, I think that you just saying the heart of the movie, that is kind of the main point I want to get here. So I watched every single Garfield movie beforehand. Once again, they were all bad. CJ hasn't seen any of them.
Nope, I
know
couldn't.
that much.
I just couldn't.
No,
I couldn't.
There was a stream that he was doing where I actually showed him Nermal and Arlene's designs from the Garfield movies. He was flabbergasted by it, just how off they looked, and how, like, the films are all bad, they're poorly written, they're unfunny. I actually ended up making my tier list before I saw the Garfield movie, and I said, no matter what, this film, it could be mediocre, and I'd still like it. I'm thankful it's not mediocre. I'm thankful I actually really ended up enjoying it a lot. But it could have been, and it still would have been better than everything else. But when he ended up mentioning Heart, I ended up doing a little digging, and I realized something about the past Garfield movies and this one, because there are some similarities between them, but there's one crucial thing that differentiates this one from the ones that already existed, and that's the heart of it. Every single other Garfield movie that exists, weirdly enough, is about romance. The first two live-action movies have the subplot being John's romantic relationship with Liz, which is weird because this was the movies that came out in 2004 and 2005, I think, for A Tale of Two Kitties, and John got together with Liz in the comic strip in 2006. So it's really weird to see Liz, fawning over John and saying, oh, you're a really nice guy and all this stuff. And then the 3D animated movies, the straight to DVD ones, you have the backdrop of Garfield and Arlene's relationship, which in the comics is very one-sided, where, Garfield even just gets Arlene because he feels I feel the need for a little companionship today. Not because he wants, he actually fully loves Arlene. Arlene is still his girlfriend, but they don't have this romantic relationship.
There are times where he does care about her a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, he does care about her a lot, but just basing an entire movie, Fun Fest, which was the worst movie out of all of them. It just bad. The entire plot revolves around this muscle cat, Ramon, sweeping Arlene off her feet, and then Garfield feeling like he needs to own up for it, so he goes to find some magical pond of funny water that he can drink. That he can actually be funny because he feels like he's no longer funny. Having a whole plot of the movie be pushed out by romance for Garfield just feels so wrong, because that anytime in the Garfield series you see romance, it's usually a joke. It's not taken seriously. But with this Garfield movie, it's the whole thing is pushed out by family, right?
Yes.
That's the driving force of this movie, is Garfield's relationship. And with family, that's something that the Garfield series has always held in high regard. Let's see, I actually have a list here. There's entire storylines, some of which that we mentioned, which is all about Garfield. The Phil Roman specials, right? Comes Garfield on the Town, Garfield Christmas, Garfield in the Rough, Garfield Thanksgiving. All of those are revolving around family and how special that is to Garfield. So having a movie that actually ends up highlighting this fact, which you don't see often a lot, as something that the Garfield series is actually built on as a special thing. 'Cause, even Jim Davis actually put his family in the comic strip. Doc Boy,
His mom, his dad, his grandma.
His mom, his dad, his grandma, those were all people in Jim Davis's life, and he felt like they were important enough to actually put them into the comic strip. That's how much of an impact they had on his life, and he shows that through Garfield. So seeing a movie which actually digs deep down into how Garfield, just how important it is, it's refreshing after watching every single movie that didn't seem to understand what was actually important to Garfield. Sorry, that may have been a little rambly, but that's just something that I noticed after you ended up...
I think that's a fair point.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of other things that we also really liked about this movie, but we're getting kind of... how do I want to put this? I think we've kind of like scratched the surface. I think the story works. The jokes, like we said, a lot of them don't land, but they still. I mean, no, they do land. It's just like
Jokes are good.
The jokes land. They're just not like they're not laugh out loud hilarious. So I can understand
which they don't need to be.
Yeah, I can understand if people.
Garfield comic strip himself is not like laugh out loud funny a lot of the time. Once again, compared to the past movies, there is a joke specifically in Fun Fest where the joke is a character specifically looks at Garfield and says, "Well, you're a poopy head." I wanted to, no. As long as we're avoiding stuff like that, I'm fine with the humor. The humor's good.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, the humor is inoffensive. Let's put it that way. I think it works. It's just like don't expect anything too hilarious. Is it something you would pay to see in a movie theater? That depends. Like, I personally enjoyed it. If I had the chance, I might go see it again. I'll definitely buy it on Blu-ray just to see if I can find any other like things I may have missed.
Right, when it comes out for DVD, definitely. I'm planning on picking this up.
For other people, though, that's kind of hard to say. Like, I don't know. Maybe they might wait for streaming, which I get. That's how a lot of people are these days. But I'll say this, though. When I went to see it, there weren't a whole lot of people there. There were mostly teens to adults. Very few kids. And it wasn't even a packed room. You could kind of like spot where everybody is. And like I said, everybody laughed at those two John moments. And the first people that were leaving during the credits, they were like, well, that was a good movie. Like, so the audience enjoyed it. And there was only like one other group with me that stayed until the very end at the credits where there's a post-comic credit scene, which...
Oh, yeah. We're gonna get this. That is... We're not gonna say what it is. Well, actually, we might near the end of this if we end up going to the way that... into some of the stuff I have here in my notes. But the fact they included a comic strip in this movie... That's done by... It's done by the Garfield team. It's not done by Jim Davis, probably. But, like, it's done by the people who do Garfield right now. I think I should note first, this isn't an original thing that this Garfield movie did first. No. A Tale of Two Kitties and Garfield Gets Real, they both had comic strips that were made specifically for those movies. So, those exist. The way that it's handled here, I think, is way better than the other things. Because... in Gets Real, the original comic strip that's created for the movie is just slapdashed haphazardly. It's just basically used for background material. They need to make a comic strip. Here's what the comic strip is. Let's just reuse it a million times. It's not special. You see it in the background almost everywhere in the movie. On the poster and all that stuff. And then A Tale of Two Kitties, that was just for a promotional video of the making of it, where it was in the background. So I think the way that they ended up including this comic strip was a lot more impactful as a post-credit scene.
I agree. I thought that was just... And you know what? Just to say it, and I don't think Garfield said this in I don't know how many years, but he used to have the catchphrase of, nice touch. And I would say this is a nice touch.
Yeah, definitely a nice touch. I also liked how during the credits they ended up including... some of the things that were cut. It seemed they had a couple of... they had a villain song that was cut, and they ended up putting that in the credits. So it's always nice to see things like that.
Yeah, I was wondering where did that come from, but I was like... Then you told me it was cut content. I'm like, you know what? That's actually a nice way to put it in the movie. If you can't fit it in there, just put it in the credits. That works.
The director of this film is the director for Emperor's New Groove. That's a movie I haven't seen, but apparently there was supposed to be a villain song in that movie as well, but they cut it just because it was too... the movie was going on for too long, so they cut it. So maybe that's what happened here. I'm not sure.
I think we can move on to the cons now. Honestly, it's a lot of nitpicks and maybe like one issue I have with it, but you go ahead.
Okay, I have one very minor nitpick. It's not anything to do with the film. I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. There is a scene where Jinx ends up trying to communicate with the people as part of her evil plan with like actual people. And I was worried they were going to cut to her actually talking with them because that would be completely... We already have Garfield's lips moving, which is a critique I think that you and I both have. We don't like seeing that, but I think we both just begrudgingly accepted
Yeah,
that.
Because if we didn't have it, it would just look like lazy animation. I get that.
It's something that they just have to do.
Yeah.
But thankfully they didn't. They actually came up with a workaround for why Jinx is able to talk with the people there. I thought that was a funny joke when they cut away. I don't want to get into spoilers, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think they could have done the way that Jinx is able to communicate a little bit better.
Yeah, when I first saw that scene when Jinx is on the phone talking to them, I'm like, you know they can't understand you, right? And then it cuts to meow, 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 meow. I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
That made me laugh. Yes, exactly. Once again, I don't want to get into spoilers because it is important. It is one of those Chekhov's guns how they end up actually being able to understand what Jinx is saying. I think it would have been, there's a different way you could have taken it where it would have been funnier, but I'm not going to get into it once again with spoilers.
The only other thing you could have done is had the two dogs go in and sabotage them, or like have the cameras rotate to them so that they'd be alerted. But then you wouldn't have that other.
There were two options, I guess.
Then you wouldn't have that other two. Then you wouldn't have that other scene near the end. But you could have still worked around something. But either way, it's like, thank you for realizing. Yeah, they don't talk, but because of that, it feels like it opens up a whole new can of worms because of that. But yeah,
the thing, yeah. I think, honestly, another option would have been just to have her text, but then, again, you can't have
or
that
text-to-speech.
chaos
Text-to-speech.
at the end. Text-to-speech. Yeah, exactly. That also would
kind
work,
of.
I
think
suppose.
kind of, but it's like, I don't know.
Kind of.
Okay, there's one other thing that, like, I'm not sure how to feel about this, because it just feels so, okay, I can suspend my disbelief for a certain amount, okay? But when you bring up these acorns that act like walkie-talkies and there's like nothing grounded in roots about how these work and actually work like Bluetooth, it's like, come on, even I can't take this.
That's something that I personally wasn't really bothered by. It's just
fair.
I don't know. I can see where you're coming from, though. Definitely not bringing up just something random where it works. I think it's rule of funny with me, where if it's funny enough, I can suspend my disbelief. And I think it was not a knee slapper of a joke, but it was just funny enough that I could suspend my disbelief for the acorns. Personally, with me, one of the major issues I had was the product placement, and this is a complaint that I actually see with a lot of other people, is that this film has too many product placement. There was Walmart, Olive Garden.
Those are the two I caught. What are some others? Because Sony headset. But that one didn't bother me.
I let the Sony headset thing slide because that's from Sony, right?
Yeah. This is the Sony picture. So that didn't bother me so much, and it's not like they were like shoving it in your face. It's like a small little thing there, and it's on a product that they actually make. So for me, that kind of made sense. I'm just like, okay.
Well, there was also FedEx. I think that the product placement wasn't bothering me until the end. Like that ending cutscene, 15 seconds, it's nothing but product placement, and that when it started to bug me a little bit.
Okay.
Even then, I do have to give it props, because if you compare this movie to the first Garfield movie in terms of product placement, they have an entire scene in the first Garfield movie where there's a dog show and it's nothing but product placements. They literally have a girl in the background with an Ace Hardware store sash on for no discernible reason. And like a 15-second actual cut to a Wendy's commercial. And it's, once again, it may seem like I'm bringing back the past movies again.
No, go for it.
Like a lot. And obviously I would. But that's just because I am so relieved. Like, maybe that's why I'm giving it a little bit of a leeway on terms of the advertisements, because I've seen Garfield do worse with advertisements. And there's a good, like, 40-minute chunk of the film where you go without any ads. And that's during, like, the major of the scenes.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of products there where you have, like, fake products, like Binkios, right?
Yes,
so it's not
Binkios.
all... Yeah.
Binky also only got, like, a small little cameo of, like, a sticker, and I think you pointed that out to me.
Yeah. He appears on a sticker, he's a plush in the restaurant scene, and there's Binkios. So Binky's mentioned, which is more than
most of
the
the other
past,
characters.
like, things.
There was, like, the other thing that kind of bothered me is, like, when Garfield's being bounced back and forth through that whole ricochet part the first time, he bounces off of the Garfield balloon. I'm just like, okay, I get what you're trying to go for here, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work in this context. Could this have been anything else? Could this have been Binky? Could this have been Orson? Could this have been Otis? Or what was the name? Otto? I'm sorry.
Otto.
What was the
Otto?
Yeah, Otto. It could have been like any
Otto.
other character, but you did that to be meta, and it didn't. To me, it didn't work.
I think that if they wanted to they could have replaced it with a sign, maybe like Orson's Farm, because that's what the strip was called in places that it wasn't the U.S., right? I think that would have been a
Yeah.
better replacement. I get what you're saying. That kind of bugged me a little bit too. I did like it when they ended up repeating the joke a second time, and there's actually a cut of Garfield. Like, you see this scene where two characters are talking, and Garfield's just in the background, he's flying, and I was joking about thinking that's like, oh, it's Garfield doing his Nick All-Star Brawl recovery, because you just see him there, and he's doing the same pounce, and I thought that was funny, but I get where you're coming from. This is a con that my brother had. Like I mentioned earlier, he didn't like the fact there were a bunch of original characters, and I just wanted to say that I disagree with that.
I don't think that's a problem.
The Gets Real movie.
I don't think that's an issue.
That's
I
not
can
really
understand
a
where he's
problem.
coming from. It's like, well, how come we don't see more characters?
Exactly. It's the
Yeah, it's
Garfield
like, how
movie.
come we don't see more of the
should be
Garfield
more
characters
about
show
Garfield.
up in this? And it's like, well, what, are we going to have a scene with Irma? Like, it's like, there are characters, it's just, for this to work, it had to have original characters, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing that would have made a bit more difference is if, instead of Otto and Lactose Farms, that was USA Acres. That would have been great, but that also...
Right. That would have been excellent,
Yeah.
but like, what are you supposed to do then? Orson's just... I guess I can't go into that because it's spoiler territories, but it would be really hard to work in the storyline with Otto and Bessie, I think her name was.
Yeah, I can't... I think that was her name.
With other US Acre characters. It would be extremely hard to go for the plot they were going with those two. Which, it's not like the plot with those two is anything amazing or anything, but it works well enough that I think that they end up coming up with it.
Yeah, once again, it's like a heart of a movie as well, and that's like, these are like some characters. Yeah, you wanted these characters to be happy. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I did just want to say, in terms of the original characters thing, Garfield Gets Real, the trilogy of that, they have a whole cast of original characters. They all look hideous, mind you, and they're all also not really likable. So I think that's because he ended up watching two of those movies with me. So I think that's partially where his original character complaint comes from, because he didn't like how the original characters in this movie, it's comparable to the past movies is what I'm trying to say. The amount of original characters. And how some of the original characters take up a lot of the screen time. But it's better than the past movies because these are actually likable characters. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I feel like they were fleshed out enough with when the context of the time that they were given.
Yeah.
So I think that it worked. Like, they were given their proper due. And like I said, I do like the two dogs that they brought in, Roland and Nolan. I thought they were great. And as for Vic, I also thought Vic was really good. I'm happy with the direction they took with him.
The direction they took,
Yes.
yeah. I think Vic, just based on the plot of the movie, is my favorite character after Odie,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, Odie's probably my favorite character in the movie. Vic probably comes in a close second. I will say this much in terms of complaint. I do wish we got more John, and I do wish we actually got to see a little bit more of John's dorky side.
Yeah.
He's still by far the best John out of all the other movies, because the first Garfield movie, John, he's a suave, very slick. He doesn't feel like John at all. During the first two movies, they just have like one thing where Garfield one-ups John right at the beginning, and then they proceed to have John be the most like slick ladies man, which is just completely not John. And then in the other three Garfield movies, they have him right at the beginning, he says something, he does something, and then he's gone for the rest of the movie. So at least with this, he's still there. We see him reacting like he should to Garfield and Odie being missing.
Yeah, this is John.
I do wish we got to see more of it.
This might have been like a good version of John. Although there's also like that one little scene near the beginning. I like that one where he's watching cat flicks, and Odie changes it to like some kind of cheesy romance, and it's so cardboard. They're actually it actually looks like they're cardboard or something with the way their mouths move. Yeah. And Garfield's just like, ugh, and he looks at Odie, who's just like tearing up and really enjoying it. And then there's John on the other side doing the same thing, and
who's also
and then Garfield's like, ugh, because he's like, well, I'm out. He doesn't say it, but he's like, I'm outvoted. I can't change the channel.
Man, this movie, man. I guess if we're talking about that, we can now move on to the misconceptions.
Yeah, well, do we have any other cons before we move on? Because
any other cons?
Yeah.
I feel like there are some unnecessary parts of this movie. I don't want to get into spoilers, dang it. But during the end of the movie, there is a change that happens, and in the end, the change affects absolutely nothing. I think you know what I'm talking about when I say that.
I think I know what you're talking about. Is it like with Roland and Nolan?
With Roland and Nolan, yes. Where it seems like, okay, that's the plot.
Okay, yeah, that one, that did feel a bit forced. I'll be honest, that did feel a bit forced.
Yeah, it was a bit forced, especially since we don't really know anything about these characters. I guess that's the other thing. Like, it's 1 hour 47 minutes. I like the time that they focused on Garfield and Vic, but with some of the changes near the end of the movie, it felt like I wanted to see more John, but that's just because I wanted to. But if we wanted to go with the thing at the end of the movie, we needed to see more time of Roland and Nolan, and we didn't really get that.
Plus, if we did have John in here,
so I guess that's my only other.
Like, how would John work into this? That's the other problem. Is like if John gets into this movie, the real issue is in like, well, then is he going to become like the hero? You can't do that. This is Garfield.
No, he can't. John, just like the other storylines, John would most likely be stuck at home, or we get some scenes of him driving around.
Yeah.
Once again, like with a lasagna in the back of his car, trying to look for Garfield, which wouldn't be bad scenes. But once again, I really do feel like they were actually cutting quite a bit to try and make this fit in for 1 hour and 40 minutes.
Oh yeah, and can we also say real quickly, not that this is a problem, but someone really likes Tom Cruise when they worked on this movie.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. You can even see that in some the movie poster. There's multiple, but there's one movie poster specifically where you have Garfield sitting in a lounge chair and there's explosions going off behind him, and then you see like the villains on the top left.
Oh, jeez.
Do you know the movie poster I'm talking about?
No, I'll have to look for that.
That feels very Tom Cruise-esque, and they do actually reference Tom Cruise.
They say him by name.
And they have some scenes.
Yeah,
they say him by name.
They say him by name. Garfield says, I do my own stunts. Me and Tom Cruise. And not only that, but then you have two music cues play up. And I'll say what they are, because they're credited. You have the Mission Impossible one, which, to be fair, that's just kind of like you use that for almost every mission, or like every scene that's going to involve like a mission and a plan that they're going through. And then the second one is Top Gun, and I'm like, what? Like, I get what they're trying to do here, but I don't feel like that really worked. But it didn't. It's like I kind of laughed at the ridiculousness of that, but it's at the same time like, why is this playing?
It is kind of funny how, like, it's not like this works substantially well, but you think that Garfield and a heist flick as a combination wouldn't, like, I don't want to say it works extremely good, but it works good enough, if that makes sense.
It's satisfying.
Yeah, it's satisfying. Let's move on to misconceptions now, because this is something that we actually talked about beforehand, is that there is some general misconceptions a couple of times that have been repeated in some of the videos. Once again, if people dislike this film, that is completely fine. Like I said, I ended up going to this with my brother, and he ended up walking away saying it was good, but he didn't love it as much as I did. And that, if you have a different feeling, that's fine. But I've seen multiple sources now, multiple videos and also multiple news articles where they end up saying that Vic ropes Garfield into helping him commit a heist.
And that is completely inaccurate. Completely inaccurate.
That is completely false. That doesn't happen in the movie. It happens pretty early on. Do you think that we can say what it is, or do you think it's spoilers?
Because it's so early in the film, I think we can at least talk about that. Because at this point, we probably should have brought this point earlier so that we haven't lost a lot of people. But darn it, we're finally going to talk about at least what is going on here. So, yeah, at the beginning, Garfield and Odie are kidnapped. They're used to lure out...
Catnapped?
Yeah, catnapped. Catnapped and dognapped. Pet-napped, basically. They're used to lure in Vic. Vic goes in to rescue them, but he's also telling them, we got to get out of here because this is all a trap. And he knows that. He knows that full well going in to rescue them is a trap. And Garfield is just, like, really angry, and he has every right to be. And then, like, the main antagonist comes out, and they make their case, and they say their motive and objective and their history, and, you know, Garfield's like walking away from it, like, I'm not involved in this. But no, they force him into it. Not Vic. It's Jinx and Roland and Orton.
Exactly.
They force him into it.
If anything, Vic doesn't want Garfield to get involved with this. And as you see throughout the film, Vic is doing everything he can to make sure that Garfield doesn't stay involved with this. Which, like, you know, part of the family subplot,
Yeah.
really.
Because he's actually, believe it or not, I'll just say this: he is a good father, and it's all explained. And when you see see that flashback, that feels so heart wrenching. But he's doing it.
It does.
But he's doing it because. Well, I can't. I won't say anymore. You could probably figure it out.
I know.
But
I'll just say, when that scene came on, I was watching it the entire time with just a smile on my face, just because it was just so heartwarming. My heart.
Yeah, it's heart wrenching. It hurts to it hurts to watch it because you sympathize so much. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. Totally, and it's paid off beautifully later in the film.
Yes. So what are some?
The whole argument that Vic is a bad father that I've seen passed
Heck
around,
no! Heck no! That is a huge lie. That's a big old lie.
Huge lie. Okay, this is one that I heard. Is that they say that Garfield's mean to John at the beginning, which
look, okay, like he's
no.
Like Garfield, like he's just going about his daily routine, okay? But I don't really like he's maybe maxing out his credit card, maybe he's like eating things maybe he's like eating him out of the house at home, maybe. That's just Garfield. However,
which is something that Garfield is already.
However, there is a very sweet moment where John collapses on his sketch pad, or not his sketch pad, his desk, and Garfield, like at first it's kind of rough. He pushes him onto the bed and he just flops over, and then Garfield like covers him up, gives him like the little thing for his eyes, puts his headset on him, gives him Pookie. I think does he even kiss him on the forehead? I forget.
I don't remember specifically, but then we see around. Then he turns around, he sees Odie, and it says, "You saw nothing," and then he goes to bed himself, right?
Instead of the scene where after he comes out of the bath and they use that for the promotion, no, that scene actually comes from him not wanting to admit he's doing something nice, which is also kind of another Garfield thing.
Yeah.
Like, I guess he doesn't like to show his soft side.
This film, instead of choosing to go for the easy, low-hanging fruit of, like, of just referencing, Garfield kicking Odie off the table.
Which doesn't happen. I don't think it happens. Unless it was a blink and miss.
Which doesn't happen.
Unless it was a blink and we miss it. But I don't think we did.
I don't remember it. It mentions Garfield's love for lasagna, but it doesn't shove it in your face that he's saying lasagna every 5 minutes,
That's another
thing.
Yeah, that's another thing I did want to bring up. It's like, when you've played Nicholas Star Brawl 2 and you've played like the Nicktoons Racing 3, it's like, it's constantly these one-liners and food puns, and I'm like, this is really getting old. This gets annoying fast. But thankfully, it is not like this in the movie. There's some jokes, there's some food jokes in there, obviously, but it is not like every 5 seconds. There's like a handful of them, I'll say.
Instead, the movie chooses to really go down to some of the deeper things, like I mentioned earlier, with Garfield and family, and just the lesser things that you see, which I feel like I really appreciate that it does.
I feel like this might get a sequel. I don't know if it's going to be like a streaming only. We'll have to see what it's doing right now.
Well,
we'll see.
If we're talking, it's already almost made back its entire. I know that there's been some reports that in the box office it has done poorly in terms of it being Memorial Day weekend box office.
Right.
But
however,
it has almost made up all its money back.
Yeah, I think that
they will probably make back all their money by the end of the week.
In fact, it made more money overseas than it did here in the States. So that's one thing
which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one thing to definitely keep in mind.
And then you're gonna, and then they'll probably get like a check for it for like on a streaming service, so they can make their money back that way as well.
Right.
That's something I've heard from like other channels like Valiant, Renegade, and WDW Pro. If there is a sequel to this, I think it's time for them to finally flesh out and really work on the story and get Garfield's Judgment Day done.
Oh, that would be great. Personally, if they do make a sequel for this, the 2 ideas that I had were if they were going to go for a sequel. First off, U.S. Acres.
Yes.
Obviously.
It's either that
it's already been a movie idea they wanted to do.
It's either you can do that, or you could have it where you're saving Arbuckle Farm. And you could still have them there.
Or saving Arbuckle Farm.
Yeah, and you could still have the character show up there.
There's a children's book that actually says that U.S. Acres takes place on the farm that's right next to Arbuckle Farm.
Oh.
I think that's something that you could actually easily retcon.
Oh, heck yeah. That's another thing.
It'd be fine.
That's another thing that I feel like this movie did. There were like 2 different kind of retcons. One, it does tell us how old Garfield is in this movie. So, which, if we take that with the design of what he looked like back during that age, it actually kind of matches up. It's very close.
Yeah.
So that's actually pretty cool that they did that. But if you think he's like his current age, which he wouldn't be alive for that, but it's like he's like, I'm just thinking he's that young. But at the same time, Odie's kind of like that same age, so you kind of have to make him that young. Otherwise, it's like dog years, you know?
Right. Not to mention, the designs are actually based off of the older appearance that Odie and Garfield had in the comics. Kind of the earlier, like, you know, you can definitely see the influence from around when the first Garfield special came out.
And it's especially noticeable. It's especially noticeable with Odie, because that design is just so, right on the nose.
Yeah, right on the nose, definitely.
The other retcon I think I'm trying to remember is that it feels like this doesn't connect with his story of him and his mother, Garfield's mother, and his grandfather.
I was going to say, because this film's main theme is family, I think it would be good to continue that either with going with John's family on the farm and making a U.S. Acre sequel, or picking up based off of Garfield on the Town and doing a sequel where Vic reunites with Garfield's mom, and maybe we get a little bit more of Garfield's backstory.
Yeah, like,
you know,
what happened between these two?
We could bring back the Claws as like the main antagonist of that film, main antagonist for it. You know, like the purple cat with the gold tooth.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I do remember. Like,
you do remember that?
I do remember Garfield on the Town. I think I have the comic book.
Right. That is just another quick little thing I want to give this film for. They actually gave us a Garfield villain that feels like, with her plot, it definitely feels a little extravagant, but at least it's a villain I can see that's fitting for a Garfield movie.
Absolutely.
Because it's a cat, and that has been a lot of the antagonists in the Phil Roman TV specials. Two of them are cats, and those are probably the best antagonists of the film. If the TV short even has it, and I feel like that's just the best way to go for a Garfield antagonist, because that way Garfield is able to communicate with them. They can have banter, they can talk. They don't really go that far into it for this film, but that's just the safest way to go for it. So yeah.
Except for that one moment, little banter scene, or not banter, but it's like she's listing out basically her demands, and like Garfield is just like, okay, that's reasonable, and then like another one that seems absolutely like
unfair,
and then he's like, ooh, the twist, I love it, because at that point he wants revenge on his dad too, so
right.
So that I like that moment too. But yeah, if we're talking about sequels, good luck if you want to do Judgment Day, because I would really like to see that, but there's a lot of things you'd have to change about that. I've read the comic book on that one, and I'm just like, oh, please, take out the part where they just say, okay, guys, we have to talk now. We actually have to speak to the humans.
Yeah, just get rid of that.
Yeah.
I never liked that part of Judgment Day.
Yeah, just don't do that,
gosh.
and you're good. Just don't do that. Work something else in, and it'll work. It'll work. And that also has something to do with family and him wanting to protect him at whatever cost. So there you go again. You have setups of like either trying to protect you can have him helping out the family farm, or maybe like protecting. Maybe Judgment Day can happen there. Who knows?
Yeah.
Two birds with one stone. Maybe. Let's go.
Right. Or just do an extended version of Garfield on the Town. Either of those two would be great for sequels.
Agreed.
In terms of it.
Also, I think there's like one little criticism left, is like people are saying like they're just so sick of Chris Pratt being in everything, and I'm like, you know what? If he was bad at it, then I could see the argument. But for me, he was fine as Mario. He's fine as Garfield.
Yeah, that's my take on Chris Pratt as Garfield too. He's not bad. There are some moments specifically, there are some lines where he really actually shines through as Garfield. Specifically, the one that comes to mind, especially from the first trailer, I've never jumped. When he ended up saying that, especially with the look that Garfield's giving on screen, it sounds really good. It looks really good. It feels like Garfield.
Agreed. And there was even comments in there too, where like people actually wrote in, they were like, the I never jumped, that just radiates Garfield. I'm like, absolutely it does.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing to note here is that Jim Davis said specifically that he liked Chris Pratt in the role, and the main director for the film said that he imagined Chris Pratt being in the role. So those two people are happy. Chris Pratt's happy to voice him, and he does a good enough job. In terms of other voice actors, I think the person who voiced Odie actually hit the nail on the head. A lot of the time, I couldn't really make out that Greg Berger wasn't voicing Odie. It feels very similar.
Honestly, I really couldn't tell the difference. It sounded just like Odie.
Yeah, there was actually some criticism going around when the voice actor ended up making a statement saying, well, I never knew that Odie didn't talk before. And there were a lot of people who were like, well, see, this is why we can't hire these bad voice actors, because they don't understand the characters. Well, as long as they get the character down.
Yeah, as long as they get the performance, they understand it. Yeah.
Other characters, Vic, Jinx, Roland, Otto, Nolan, they all do good.
They're all fine. You know, they're
all fine.
Even though they've mentioned it several times that Samuel L. Jackson is doing Vic's voice, I could not tell that was Samuel L. Jackson. I couldn't tell.
Samuel Jackson's very known for doing a very specific type of role.
Yeah.
And
so
this feels different.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. Because if you showed this if you had somebody else watch this who had no idea who the cast was, sure, they could tell Garfield's a little off, but they would never be able to identify who's doing Vic's voice.
Right.
Overall, it's like, okay, I think we can come to our closing thoughts and arguments. You know, it's like you get some good Garfield moments in there. There's, like, the jokes, you know, they work, they land, they're not a riot. But if you want to just have something that feels, I guess the best way I can say this is like, this might be like a comfort movie kind of thing. It just, you go in, you watch it to have a good time, sort of.
Yeah.
Like, you leave with a good feel. But a lot of people we're seeing online just don't have that. But made to each their own. We're kind of in the same boat. Like, if I'm using a 10 scale for this, because, okay, even if I were to do this on a 5 scale, I'd probably say high 3 out of 5, low 4 out of 5, which I guess on a 10 scale, that would be a high 7 or a low 8, which I think you said that's right on.
That is exactly what I ended up rating it. Yeah. I ended up saying it's either a very high 7 or a low to mid 8.
Yeah.
Just with my personal rating.
But then again, we're Garfield fans, so
we're both Garfield fans. Yeah. So
if you're not a Garfield fan, if he's never made you laugh, you probably won't enjoy this movie. But I hope you at least appreciate the heart of the movie. That's what I hope to take out of it.
I would just like to reiterate, this isn't just a thing where, I only like it because I'm a Garfield fan. Because that is some comments that I actually have received when I'm talking about this movie, is that, so you're a Garfield fan, that must mean you like it. I, just to reiterate, watched every single other Garfield movie, and in those movies, they had Garfield doing Garfield things, and I hated every single one of them. So this isn't just a thing where it's, you like it because it's Garfield. I like it because I feel like it's doing a good job with Garfield as a character and as a franchise. It's doing a good job showing off some of the more interesting parts of it as a series.
Right, because I myself, I couldn't see those Garfield movies. I've never seen them. I never wanted to, because when I first heard back in 2004 they were coming out with a live-action Garfield movie, I'm just going like, please make it look like the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie with CGI. Don't make it look like a realistic cat, like you did make a realistic-looking Scooby-Doo. Don't do that. And then the first image we see is a realistic-looking Garfield. I'm like, I can't see this. I just can't. And yeah. From what I've heard, it hasn't been good. And then all those other movies that came out, I'm just like, what even are these? Like, I just couldn't.
I still can't believe that. I know that the 3 straight-to-DVD movies were all written by Jim Davis. And as a matter of fact, I think in an interview, Jim said he wanted to do Gets Real for a very long time. They all don't feel like they're written by him. They feel like they're written by some secondhand thing. So I can say you aren't missing out on anything. I don't think anyone's going to say that you if you're a Garfield fan, you have to watch it. But
yeah, that's the thing. I'm a fan of Garfield. I want to enjoy Garfield, and if I watch these, I might not enjoy Garfield. So let's not do that. But I enjoyed this, and like I said earlier, if I had the chance to go back and see this again, I probably would. I enjoyed it that much. But, you know,
my local theater is actually having it in 3D as well.
Ooh.
I'm probably not gonna. I might not, but if I find the chance to just get away and see it in 3D, I might do that.
I might try that as well. If mine has 3D as well, I'll see if I can do it. Just like we said, it's like the heart of the movie keeps the whole thing together. The audience I went to, I heard a lot of them say that they really liked the movie. So,
Same with mine. Admittedly, the audience that you described, exact same one that I had. There were just a bunch of little kids, and there were like 4 young adults right behind, and they were the only people who stayed behind till the credits. And they all sounded like they were having a great time. And
yeah, so I have no idea where this hate's coming from. I can understand if it didn't make you laugh. Like I said, the jokes, they land, they're not gonna make you go, they're not gonna make you howl with laughter. With maybe a couple exceptions.
Right.
And also, like, it's a taste kind of thing. But hey, if anybody else there saw the movie and they didn't like it, you're perfectly entitled to have that opinion. We liked it. We have a lot of reasons why. We just said, like, the heart of the movie, the way the characters are portrayed, the way it just feels like it feels like this is a good adaptation of Garfield. So right now, I'm comfortable with the second movie. Just let's see how they go. Yeah, honestly, this is a nice family-friendly movie that you can take just about anybody to go
Definitely
see.
Go and see. That's the main thing. Even if you're not a Garfield fan, I don't think that you can walk away hating this. I mean, you can, and that's perfectly fine.
Which is weird why so many other we're seeing so many other videos out there saying that. But once again, we're not bashing on anyone. We're like, they hate it, they have their reasons. We liked it, we have ours.
We just wanted to put out our thoughts on it because we really walked away liking it. We wanted to talk about why we did.
Yeah, we want to see if there's anybody.
If they do end up, anyone else who has if you ended up seeing the Garfield movie, what's your thoughts on it?
Exactly. Yeah. What's your thoughts? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Are you planning to go see it? Let us know down below. We'd love to hear more about it. We want to know.
I would just like to...
actually who actually liked this movie besides us. It has to be more than us and the people who saw it in the theater with us.
Right. I would just like to quickly cut in because I did have this in my notes. If they do make a Garfield sequel, there is a ton of cut things from this movie that, like, from the stuff that leaked, that they could dig into to use. This actually had a different design. There's an unnamed, unused farmer character that looks like Doc Boy, but is round. There's the carousel. There's a scene depicting a carousel at night with Jinx sitting on it. It's really beautiful. There's also a scene where the mall is flooded and there's crocodiles in the water and Garfield's looking like he's trying to figure out a way to get over the water. And the aforementioned villain song. Other than that, there's also like a line in one of the trailers that was cut from the movie. It's specifically when Garfield's blow dried and he's telling Odie not to. But yeah, I just wanted to mention all of those because I find that the cut content for this film, it is interesting to see how this film developed.
Let's see if we get a sequel and where they take it. Thank you for joining me. Is there a channel that people can find you at?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
But it was a pleasure to be here. And
it was great to have you on here.
The Garfield movie. Yeah.
It was nice to have somebody else with knowledge of Garfield that was beyond mine.
Right.
So, hey, if I'm going to bring in somebody about this, it has to be somebody who's on my level or higher.
I always enjoy talking about this type of stuff. So, yeah, it's fun being on here.
And thank you guys for watching this. And once again, let us know. Did you like it? Did you not? Are you going to go see it? What are your plans? Your thoughts? And we'll see you guys in another video. Later, everyone!
It's not really a misconception people have of the film. It's a misconception people have of Garfield. They're like, oh, why does he hate Mondays? He's a cat. Jim Davis actually said multiple times, Garfield hates Mondays because Mondays hate him. For him, Mondays isn't really a day. It's more of just, like, the world screwing with him.
Yeah, it's out to get him. And we've seen that plenty of times, and even in episodes of Garfield and Friends. So there was even, like, one comic strip. I love this one. I just remembered it recently. It's like, I can't remember if it was a Monday or not, but it just says like Garfield having like a bad streak, or maybe it was like a week that felt like a Monday. And he just says like, everything just feels like it's out to get to me. And then he kicks Odie off the table and Odie just floats in midair and he goes, even gravity's against me.
I remember that one. I think that's the storyline where Garfield discovers it's a week full of Mondays. And then John looks at the calendar and it's a reprint. He's like, oh, Garfield, maybe it's just a calendar error. It can't all be Mondays, and then the calendar falls down and smacks Garfield in the head, and John goes, well, then again.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think that's the main takeaway, is that this film captures the older spirit that Garfield seems to have kind of lost in its recent years. At least part of it.